Dr. Dumisane Dlamini is a distinguished executive and non-executive director with more than 20 years of experience in both public and private sector. He possesses several esteemed certificates, including Chartered Global Management Certification, including Global Management Accountant from Chartered Institute of Management, which is called the CIMA, as well as a Chartered Director from the Institute of Directors. His academic and credentials include a doctorate of business administration and a master of commerce of degree, among other qualifications. I thought you would have clapped for that. Yeah, yeah, that's Black excellence right there. Currently, he serves as a Group Chief Financial Officer of the Soul City Institute, a nonprofit organization that has made significant contributions to various communities nationwide. Previously, he held the position of Chief Financial Officer at the South African National Parks, a state-owned entity with a robust commercial focus. In addition, in his roles at Social City of Institute, he is also an investment manager at SCBBCE. Mr. Dlamini dedicated over 12 years to the South African Revenue Service, particularly during modernization phase, where he advanced to as a senior manager within the space. He also spent more than 3 years at the National Arts Council, where he played key roles in achieving 3 consecutive clean audits. Yeah, clean audits. It can be done. And this is the blueprint. And was honored with the 2016 Public Sector CFO of the Year Awards, and as well as the Young CFO of the Year accolades. Yeah. He is actively involved in various boards and chairs audit committees and frequently speaks at the national and international conference of range of topics. Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together for Dr. Dumisane Dlamini?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And I think the speaker has been extremely kind to me. I don't deserve it that she said. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to all of you. And I must take this opportunity to thank the organizers. It's a very, very fruitful conference in Daba, whatever you can call it. I would like to give my gratitude to the leadership of the church for giving us this venue. And I would like to thank our fellow speakers, those who have spoken before me, excellent. And I know that those who are coming after me, they're going to do even a greater job. Can you clap a hand for them? But lastly, I just want to take an opportunity to thank you for investing in your future by being here. And I think you deserve a round of applause. I've been given a topic, and I hope that I will do justice to it. It's a very, very difficult topic because it talks about what is important. The people who are actually carrying the state, the civil servant, the people who provide us with services every single day. Perhaps maybe I want to start off by saying, public servants play a very crucial role in government. And one will ask, what's the role of the government? The government is to create infrastructure for all of us, is to make sure that we live a very good life. I mean, if you have an opportunity to travel around the world, you will see what different governments do in their countries. And similarly, what is expected of our country. And that's why it makes an individual a proud citizen of that particular country. And I must say that South Africa is one of the best countries in Africa, if it's not in the world. We do have our own challenges, but we also have the things that we can celebrate. I've heard many people who have left this country and work overseas, and they were talking about something that we will never understand if you live in this country. And they say it's the weather. And when they say it's the weather, it's because some other countries like Switzerland, it can be cold throughout the year and it can be icy. And in this country, we're so blessed to experience a beautiful sunshine almost throughout the year. And it's something that you'll never know. The beautiful mountain that we have, the sea that some other countries never. Do you know that Zimbabwe doesn't have a sea? And these are the things that we take for granted because we don't know what we have. So public servant, they've really played a very different role, an important role. I just want to talk about they are the gatekeepers of public resources as well as the services that we experience. When they do a good job, every citizen can benefit from it. I mean, for example, they regulate the resources, they make sure that the public purse, every single rand goes far, which is very, very critical. But they can also be enablers of corruption, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It's a very sad story for our country. Some of the things that we experience as a country, there must be law and order. And if it works properly, everybody benefit from it. I was saddened the other day when I was speaking to someone who happened that I met, and I said, but you are from a particular country, which I won't mention. And I said, you don't have a driver's license. How do you get around? Because I can see you are driving. He says, no, it's very easy. We give a policeman 50 rand, and then we go pass. It's very sad. It's a sad reality because the reality is that the person who's driving a vehicle illegally should be arrested. But when a public servant doesn't maintain law and order, he exchanged law for money for personal gratification. And you ask yourself what kind of a country that you are building. Public servant need to make sure that there is a safety and security, but that does not only happen, especially when you find policies working with criminals in order to compromise the safety of the citizens. And you ask yourself, who's going to be safe when those who are entrusted to look after us, then they are the one that putting danger on our life. We're supposed to be protecting citizens, making sure that they uphold human rights, equality, social justice, provide legal framework, and safety for our freedom as citizens. And I like this one. It says, develop strategies to address national issues like poverty, unemployment, climate change, and long-term development goals. And I will talk about unemployment in a moment. One of our speakers spoke about what we call an NDP, National Development Plan. And that thing, it had a timeline, and its timeline was 2030. And there were certain things that we had promised as a country that we will achieve. And part of it was to reduce unemployment and create more job opportunities. And I cannot tell you how many times we have missed that thing over the years, to an extent that we are almost forgetting about it. Nobody want to talk about it because we are not going to make those targets. And do you know what it means? It means if we are not meeting those targets, there are lots of people, one who will die along the way. There are lots of people who are going to go hungry. And that's why, in order to make sure that people, our citizens, they are made to forget about those things, then they're given a dummy. You know what is a dummy? I don't know why you call it in your own language, but it's that thing when you are not breastfeeding the child or you're not giving milk, you give him a dummy. It pretends that you are sucking something, but there's nothing that goes through your throat. They call it pacifier. You see? So at 350, it just gives you enough to go and buy bread and forget that you don't have a job. And that is a sad reality because nobody should be getting that. So, but I want to run into this. When a good government servant serves us with excellence, they become true to the calling to an extent that they don't care how much they get as long as they serve you as a citizen. Because there's an intrinsic value when you go away and says that madam or that man or that girl, he really give me a good service. And he doesn't care whether you give him a tip or not, he get a gratification for serving his country with honor. So what does it mean? They usually possess a lot of skills, which is something that you don't find these days. Let me tell you what qualifies somebody to get a job nowadays in government is to how many people who are in leadership you can bribe to get a position. I read a very sad article on News 24 sometime last year, where one woman who had qualified as a teacher, and he says, I don't care anymore. I will sleep with whoever who can give me a teaching post. Then I asked myself, how did we go down that road to an extent that people are willing to sacrifice their bodies in order to get what they deserve to get? Because they have the qualification. But that's what corruption have done to our country. And we've seen, for you really to go to Home Affairs, either you apply for an ID or you apply for a passport, for a birth certificate, whatever it is that you want, you need to take leave. Can anybody hear? You need to take a full day leave and sometimes be there at 5 a.m. and start queuing. There's a way to fast track it. There are those guys on the line, all of us, who will come to you and says, I can get you to the first of the line if you've got 500 rand. And I can tell you that guy does not work for Home Affairs, but he works with somebody who works with Home Affairs. And that's why you've seen the sovereignty of the country is being compromised by people who are being given citizens because they have enough money to buy citizens instead of following proper protocols of getting citizens. So, and that's what happens. So what happens? Nobody uphold integrity because there's no integrity to those who are trusted. And I must tell you, there is no civil servant that become corrupt when they get that position. They start when they are small. And most of the people who becomes corrupt, it's because when they steal sugar when they are small, we say, Myegeleni is still young, he will learn as he go along. And the reality that he never learn. The next time he's going to steal a DVD, or he's going to steal a TV, or he's going to steal an iPad. And this thing grows up until when you are given a position of power, then you use it to perpetuate corruption. And what is corruption? Corruption is stealing something that does not belong to you. Again, we're talking about civil servant as a champion of service delivery or as enablers of corruption. Many of the people, you will see that they will use their authority either to deny people certain things. Government servant, they can make something so difficult and so complex, then you realize that this thing cannot happen. And it's done deliberately so that you can pay something in order for you to get it. And it's so sad. And sometimes, take a simple thing like getting a driver's license. It's a norm now, that thing you'll never get it unless you've bribed somebody. Because the person who's testing you, even if he see that you are perfect, you are doing everything so perfect, He will say, why did you stop at the stop sign before? In fact, you brake before that line. And you realize, but I didn't. But he will convince you that you have made a mistake because he wants to fail you. And the only way he can pass you is for you to give him 2.5 or 5,000 rand, whatever it is. In fact, Prof. Zondi, I've heard somebody saying there is a Bible verse that is now being used in order to perpetuate crime. I heard one pastor says, no, you will never pass that thing. The Bible says, give honor to whom honor is due. I mean, really, that's what happened in these countries, that they manipulate the procurement process to favor certain people. I mean, apply for a tender or try to do business. It's almost an impossible task. And it's done deliberately to deny people who deserve to provide that particular service. I was really saddened to hear that in another tender, somebody bid for something that was 250,000, but it cost to do the thing about 30,000. And he paid the service provider who eventually do the job 50,000 and he pocket 200,000. And that's why you are seeing our infrastructure is crumbling and you are seeing clinic dilapidating. Why? Because the money that was supposed to be used to build a proper thing, it's now standing as a double-story house somewhere. And people are enjoying a house with a cinema and watching with their family, while some other people are not experiencing. Let me tell you a character of a civil servant that does not have a heart of the citizen at heart. I was really saddened last week to hear someone who was extremely sick when I was in KZN for Easter weekend. And I was told that he went into a hospital, and this young man, and he was told that, no, we don't admit people on a holiday. It was on the 27th. That young man was sent home, and they said, come back when it's no longer a holiday. It's sadly that within that 24 hours when he was sent home, he died. He was buried last Sunday. What has gone wrong to us? How can our negligence can lead to a losing of a soul because we just don't want to do our job at that particular point in time? So you see, even this thing, it happens everywhere. And let me tell you what corruption does. It erodes public trust because you can't trust anything that is happening in government. What is so sad that it's only not public servants that are perpetuating corruption, but even those who are in leadership, they are doing the very same thing. Let me talk about something that's very simple. I think the issue of Trump switching on funding was a wake-up call for all of us in the continent. I couldn't believe that most of the African leaders were crying for this funding that were provided by the US. And the people who are crying are the leaders of a 1.4 billion people in the continent. A massive continent that got all types of mineral resources. And what is so sad is that people who are actually giving us this kind of aid are the same people who are extracting our mineral resources and use them to convert them into money and come back and give us a portion in terms of aid. Because we ourselves, we couldn't convert those mineral resources into means that will help us as a continent. Let me tell you what saddens us, is that even the access to those minerals which are given to the foreign countries. It's the reason because our leaders are being bribed to give access to those minerals. So the issue of corruption and bribery, it's really stealing from our current people, but it's also exposing our future generation. So, and I'm going to speak about what should be our role very soon in actually dealing with what we are seeing as an issues of corruption. I mean, my brother manager talk about how much have we lost out of corruption. I mean, I was actually looking at the numbers. If you make a research, it says it's very complex and difficult to measure the exact amount of corruption globally. And the reason for that is because there's no audit trail for corruption. Remember, if you are doing a corrupt transaction, you don't exchange a contract, you don't sign a contract and say, this is a corruption deal, it's going to cost us 5 billion. And here's an invoice for it, pay it in this bank account. Most of it happens behind the scene. While we're sleeping at night, people are running with bags of 10 million. So, if you look, it is estimated by IMF, International Monetary Fund, that about 1.5 trillion US dollars is being lost through corruption globally. Now you times that by 19 rand. I cannot tell you, even myself, I'm an accountant, but I cannot tell you how much is that. But it's a lot of money. And this is not South African corruption, it's global corruption. So even the countries that we believe they're established economy, they're extremely involved in corruption and in corrupt activities. They're stealing from their citizens because there's this cancer that I can have 5 cars. It does not matter whether I'm having it at your expense. Okay, I know that I don't have much time, but I just want to talk maybe about the key takeaways. One I've mentioned, it's a loss of about 1.5 trillions. And the second one, which I want to talk about it, and it happens in many ways. Slower economic growth, misallocation of resources. Let me tell you, one of the key responsibility of our leaders is to make sure that we stimulate economic growth so that it can create jobs, so that it can alleviate poverty. But it's not happening because we are not there. And I can tell you, in many instances, it's not because this country does not have resources to be able to do that. It's because some of these things are done intentionally so that it can benefit the few at the expense of the many. I just want to come back to locally. Forget about global corruption. There's been corruption in this country. I mean, many of you watched with horror when there was a state capture inquiry. And we've heard about billions and billions which have been lost through corruption. And what is said is that even the state capture inquiry cost more than 1 billion to uncover the corruption. Can you imagine? So we've lost billions in corruption and we then spend billions to uncover corruption. And I can tell you up until today, there haven't been a single conviction. So where is the return on investment on the state inquiry? And I'm not going to mention many of the institutions that were. Corruption Watch in South Africa made an investigation. They also indicate that there's billion because it cannot be quantified. We just know about one cases of the Guptas, but there are many cases. What's the impact on the economy? It's huge, colleagues. And we know that many of the investigation that have been done by the Hawks, by NPA, by SARS, which has uncovered a lot of corruption. But I just want to talk about what it causes, a high unemployment rate in South Africa, because we are losing resources. It also gives a limited access to education. Because what it does, it reduces what should be spent to the citizen and it goes to people where it shouldn't be. It increases crime and violence. Let me tell you something. This country is one of the countries that got highest level of corruption in the world and highest crimes level of crimes. I was sitting one day with a delegation from where I work, and a lady from France just finished the meeting. Just outside our workplace, a car stopped in front of her. They grabbed her cell phone while she was waiting for Uber. What impression did he get from this country? Then you go to many countries which doesn't have, and I always ask myself, why are countries like United Arab Emirates, in which houses Dubai, have got almost no corruption? And I ask myself, this visit that we do and benchmark trips that we do, how does it help us to implement those things into our own countries? Access to healthcare, and I'm glad at least there's something that is being done by this country. But I think what it needs, colleagues and fellow citizens, is for us to come together and say, what can we do to help government? What can we do to become active citizens? And I want to speak about this because it's not an issue of unemployment, but in particular youth unemployment. And I don't want to speak about what government should be doing for us, but I want to speak about what we should be doing for ourselves. I think it has been mentioned here that not all of us can go to university, and it's something that we need to accept it as a fact. And I think we need to remove the issues of stigma of colleges, whether they are TVET, whether they are community educations of training, but the reality is that there's a lot that we can learn from skills of our hand. Maybe somebody will say, no, you're saying this because you're already a doctor. No, I'm saying this because I've learned that God blesses the work of your heart. Let me say this because I have been an employee for the longest time until I got tired to be an employee. There is never be a person who becomes wealthy because you are an employee. What creates wealth is the work of your hand. I've been in various industries as an accountant, as in different roles, in many different roles. But let me tell you something that has helped me to create job opportunities is to do the things that many of us despise. With every credential that has been mentioned before the beginning of my speech, and probably this is my closing remark, is it doesn't matter whether you're a chartered accountant, global accountant like I am, but one of the things that was deposited, and this is to encourage somebody. Around about 2018, 2019, I went to register to be a plumber. And I did a trade certificate. And I finished the trade certificate. Then I went to a plumbing institute, and I got a plumbing license. Because sometimes you have to forget whether you've got a PhD or you've got what, and do what you believe it's basic. And I can tell you that I started with one vehicle. And in that vehicle, I started plumbing. And my friend, manager with his wife, they helped me to get a contract with one of the insurance companies. Today, my company at least employ about 4 people. Because people are not going to remember what car did I drive, but they're going to remember different that I make in other families. So plumbing might look like a most or less respected job, but I can tell you that I've learned so much and I've grown. And let me tell you something perhaps that you didn't do. There was a conversation that we had earlier about being consumers, but not being in the value chain. And I want to illustrate that sometimes, as much as we respect education, and I must say that education is important because we have to get the skills. But How do we get? Another thing that I've learned very late after so many years in my life is to be a farmer. Not the kill the boer, kill the farmer one. This one. And let me tell you something. What I've learned through that process, it humbled me. We got into partnership with other 3 gentlemen and we started planting a simple thing like chili. Last year, we planted about 15,000 seeds of chili. I had an opportunity to go to the farm here. And one of the things I've like, by the way, the chili weights that it's planted is not my farm. It's a lease farm. Then I realized that sometimes you don't need to own a land to start working. You can start using somebody's land. God will give you your land along the way. Not only that, we are now learning how the white people have been doing this thing. I've started with 7 sheep, with 10 cows. And let me tell you something that I've learned through that process. How difficult it is to grow these animals. And what goes into the production of animal production to the process. But not only that, there are things that I've now come to understand which I've never known, because I had felt that the issue of working in a farm is for other people, not for people like us. We've recently known that the beef meat is so expensive in South Korea to an extent that they eat pork most of the time because they can't afford it. And that's one of the markets that we're going to penetrate. We also discovered that in Saudi Arabia, there's a butcher that is looking for a market where they can buy beef. Now, can you realize how much we can do by just starting as legal? And what I want to encourage as a young person is that I know that universities and the TVET colleges and everybody, they all train us to go and look for a job. And I can tell you that you don't need to look for a job after you finish this conference. One of the things that we grew up and we've never thought that could happen, and probably those who are older than like us, and I hope I look old, is that when we were growing up young, if somebody had told me that you can sell water, I would have said to that person, you are mad. Because when we grew up, there was no bottled water. But can you imagine now? We have what we call bottled water. I mean, this is natural water from God. I don't care where you get it, from the springs, from the dam, from the rain, but the reality, there's no person who can say, I have artificially created water on earth. And that water, it's the price depends where you buy it. If you buy it from the shop, it will cost you probably 8 rand. If you buy it from the hotel, it's probably 23 rand. If you buy it from the plane, it's probably 30 rand. The value of the water is determined by where you get it from. Today, water is one of the most selling commodities throughout the world. But somebody saw a vision in it. So I want to say to you, as a young person, whatever age you are sitting on a mine. Whatever you think, if you want to monetize, you can actually contact any of us. As long as you have an idea, we'll help you to monetize it and we won't charge you a cent. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Oh, wow. That is so amazing. That is so, so amazing. The speakers that are here, they really are doing the most and they really are offering their best. Did you hear that? If you have an idea, what must you do? I guess I didn't hear. Young people, what must we do? That is connection, right? Had you had stayed at home, you wouldn't have had an opportunity to hear this and to connect. Remember what was said. You don't have to go through You don't have to go through multiple things to get other people's experiences. This is what the speakers are doing. They are giving you their connections, their network, and their knowledge. That is so big. Can we just give it a round of applause for the speakers? Amazing. And what is important is start where you are. I've heard it. Start where you are, start with what you have. Most of the times is we want to start big, we want to do big things, but for you to be able to do bigger things, you need to start smaller and be comfortable to start smaller. Humble beginnings, and then we take off. Use the position given for good. I've heard that. As a public servant, as a citizen of South Africa, let us use our influence to do good. As we walk out of here today, make a conscious decision to do good. Yeah? Very interesting. I was actually just chatting with my co-MC, and he said, we even use fancy words to actually put the bribery component. And we use words like, it's facilitation fees.